every time that I see a police brutality video and the police brutality is against a non-white person, in the comments section, usually you see white people saying things along the lines of, well, they, meaning the non-white person that's a victim of police brutality, they should have just complied. And what white people don't understand, the way that the police treat white people is not the same way that they treat us non-white people. But I've also learned that that's just a concept that white people don't know how to even understand. What do you mean they treat us better than you? Which of course is part of the white privilege that white people experience in this country. When I was a little kid, I thought that the police, generally speaking, were there to protect us. Us meaning just human beings from criminals, from bad people. Honestly, when I was a little kid, I saw the police like the way that kids usually look at Batman, Spider-Man, like heroes. I really saw the police as heroes who are out there driving around, making sure that the bad guys didn't come hurt us good guys. Check this out. When I was 15 years old in the summertime, 2 of my friends came knocking on my window early in the morning. So I jump out the window early in the morning and we're on our way to our other friends' house so we could get together and, hang out. So while we were making our way down there, maybe like 5 minutes down from my house, one of my friends decided to pull out a lighter. And this lighter wasn't just a regular lighter, but it was one of those lighters where you like push the little trigger and a little flame comes out like... You know what I'm talking about. He started showing off the lighter. Look, guys, whatever, right? And we're just trying our best to make our walk all the way down to my other friend's house as fun as possible. And in this particular case, by playing around with the lighter, right? So when we finally arrived to the block of our other friend's house, all of a sudden, from every side of the road, which were 3, one to the left, one to the right, and of course behind us where we came from, 2 cop cars came from each side of the road. So 2 here, and 2 behind us. And the 2 cop cars from that way, they spread out a little bit. The cops inside of it got out immediately and drew their guns. And this happened also with those 2 and the ones behind us. Before we knew it, we were surrounded by police officers with their guns drawn out. And we stopped. Of course, now I can't think for my friends, so I'm going to think for myself. I didn't think this was for us, because why would it be for us? And so we stopped, and all of a sudden, get down on the ground with your hands behind your back. And I'm not going to lie. Initially, although they're all looking our way, I'm still in denial that this is for us, because why is it for us and how? For what? But I mean, there's nobody else there, so it has to be for us. So I literally looked at my friends like, what do we do? And they looked at me, and we looked at each other like, what the hell? And again, get down on the ground with your hands behind your back. So we looked at each other and we agreed, okay, let's get down on the ground with our hands behind our back. So we lied on the ground, put our hands behind our back. So some of the cops stayed over there by their cars with their guns drawn out. And then a couple of them approached us and quickly handcuffed us. So after they cuffed us, one of the cops, which was the sheriff, as they were patting us down and found nothing, where's the gun? We don't have a gun, sir. Oh, you think this is a game, huh? You think this is a game? And so he instructed the other officers to stand us up. So we got up, and all of a sudden the neighbors around started coming out and watching this whole scenario. The sheriff said to us, somebody called 911 and said that you guys have a gun. Where's the gun? And now this is exactly my reaction. I literally went, because it was stupid. Because the thought of having a gun at my age was ridiculous. And so the sheriff didn't really like my reaction. So he got literally in my face like that and said, oh, you think this is funny? You think this is funny? Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you think we have a gun. Why would we have a gun? And then he goes, oh, I see. You're one of those smart guys, huh? And honestly, I was a little puzzled as to why this guy had an attitude towards me. Like, you patted us down, you found nothing. Whoever called you obviously made a mistake. What do you want? Why are you standing here face to face with the 15-year-old trying to act tough with him? What kind of reaction do you want out of that? What kind of response do you want out of that? Are you mad because you found nothing? Because you can't take us to jail? So now you want to attempt to provoke me, hoping that I'm one of those kids that have no self-control, and that maybe I punch you or I shove you, and now you could finally get me for something? It just didn't make sense why this guy was standing there face to face with me, acting tough for no reason. Because I went... So when he said that to me, I simply just said, whatever, man. So then he goes on to say, oh, you're mad, huh? You're pissed off. You're pissed off, huh? What do you want to do about it, huh? Tell me, what you want to do about it? He's literally right here standing face to face with me. I could even feel particles of saliva on my face. What you gonna do, huh? What you gonna do? You mad? Do something. And I look at my friends like, what the hell's going on? And you would think and you would hope that the other cops that are watching would tell their boss, the sheriff, hey man, we searched him, we found nothing, let him go. But no, this guy has something to prove. Or maybe he was angry that he wasted his time and he was hoping to arrest a couple of young Mexican dudes and take them to jail. And because he found nothing, now he wants to create something out of nothing because he's not satisfied until somebody gets arrested today. So as he's standing here face to face with me barking stuff, I responded one more time with another and this guy literally lifted his fist and placed it on my chin, literally touched me with his fist on my chin and said, you think this is funny? Huh? You think this is funny? At this point, I'm now looking at him dead in the eyes as he's looking into mine with his fist on my chin and his face right here. And he says, laugh one more time. Come on, laugh one more time. I'll break your jaw. And I said, go ahead and break it then. Go ahead and break it. You don't think I will? So he presses his fist on my chin, and I could feel his saliva on my face. You don't think I will, huh? You don't think I will? Do it. If you really want to do it, what's stopping you? Laugh one more time. Laugh one more time, and I'll break your chin. And I said, do it. Do it. And finally, one of those cops grew the courage to cautiously walk up to the sheriff and gently tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, that's enough. Come on, let's get out of here. So the sheriff kept his fist on my chin, didn't say anything, and just looked at me for another moment. And then he said, I'm going to remember you. I'm going to remember you. And I'm going to see you around. I promise. And that was my first ever experience with a cop in any shape, way, or form. The second experience didn't happen long after this. I was around 17 years old. I had just woken up and I had to go to school, but there's still some time left for me to just lay in bed and chill because it was super early. But all of a sudden, I heard a really loud knock on the door. Now, I walked to school, so a knock on the door this early, it's puzzling because it's not like I had a ride to come for me or anything like that. So I assumed that it was probably my uncle, coming by really early. But I was not going to get up to open the door for my uncle. So I ignored it. And the other person in the house was my other brother who also had to wake up to school. It was just us two. And I knew for a fact that my brother wasn't going to wake up to open the door either. So the knock on the door went from to boom, 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 boom. And I'm thinking, damn, dude, what do you want so early? And I'm assuming, he probably wants to borrow money. I don't know. And I ignored it anyway. And then a small moment after that, I heard, okay, let's knock down the door. And now my eyes widened. And I'm thinking, what the hell? I'm in boxers. I jumped out of bed. Didn't even bother putting on pants, nothing. Because they're talking about let's knock down the door. So I rushed to the door. I grabbed the knob. And as soon as I turned the knob and was ready to open it, I cocked my fist all the way back. So as soon as I opened it, whoever was there, I was going to just pow. But when I opened it, it was the SWAT with the rifles pointed. And so my fist went like this to now. And the first cop that was right there, he put the gun to my face and told me to walk back while the other ones rushed in the house. And the first thing I thought was, damn, they're going to do the same to my little brother right now. They're literally going to wake him up with a gun to his face. And I felt really bad because it felt like shit having a gun in my face. So I'm walking backwards with the rifle in my face. And finally, when they had me against the wall, I hear at a small distance, oh shit. My little brother's voice, because they had woken him up and I assumed they put the gun to his face. So all of a sudden, down the hallway, I see my little brother being dragged out with a gun to his face. And they placed him against the wall right next to me. And they had their guns to our faces, right? So they start asking us questions talking about, where is Miguel so-and-so? And me and my brother look at each other. Like, Miguel? We don't know no Miguel. There's no Miguel in our family. In fact, none of our friends are named Miguel. No cousins, no uncles, no nobody. I looked at the cop and said, there's no Miguel here. And then he says, you think this is a joke? You got a gun to your face. We're not playing around, kid. And I said, I'm not playing around either. There is no Miguel in the house. Look for him. We're the only two people here. Where are your parents? My mother's at work. Who else lives here? My other little brothers. Where are they? At school, where they should be. So it's just your mother and your brothers? Yes. Where's the father? I haven't seen my father since I was like 5, sir. So then why does it say that Miguel lives in his house? I don't know. Then he goes, open your mouth. What? Open your mouth. He sticks the barrel in my mouth. And my brother was like, what the hell, man? You shut the hell up. Does it look like we're playing? I said, there's no Miguel in this house. Look for him. And normally I assume that a person with a gun to their face or in the mouth would probably cry at this point and be terrified. And yes, deep inside I was terrified. But I was more pissed off that this was happening to me, that I couldn't cry. I couldn't react in fear, although I was deep inside. But I was just that much more pissed off. And I think when the cop put the rifle in my mouth, the fact that I wasn't reacting scared or even cried or anything of that nature, but instead spoke to him in the manner that I did, I think they're used to applying this type of pressure and fear and getting a particular response or reaction, that when they didn't get this reaction of crying, I think it caused them to behave this way much more firmly. So there's 3 cops right here, the one with the gun to my mouth, the other one with the gun to my brother's face, and then another one that was just standing there watching. And then there was other ones that are searching the house. So while these guys, or at least this particular guy, was doing this to me, finally, 2 of the cops come out of the other rooms and come down the hallway and into the living room where we all were. And then 2 other guys come from the side door, coming in from the backyard, because I guess they were searching the backyard too. And they all came together and told these guys, hey man, we probably got the wrong house. Let's get out of here. And so these other cops started getting ready to leave. And the one that was pointing the gun at my brother's face, he put his gun away and tapped on the one that was aiming the gun at me and said, come on, man, let's get out of here. And this dude said, I don't like this kid. I don't like him at all. And then the cop said to him, come on, man, let's get the hell out of here before the parents show up. And so they all start walking out the door. And one of them says, hey guys, we got the wrong house. Sorry about that. And I say to him, hey, I need the badge number of every single one of you. Yeah, you know what? We're going to come back and give you all that when your parents are home, okay? I said, no, I need that now. Sorry, guys, sorry. We got the wrong house. We got to get out of here. And so they left. And so a couple of months later from that day, I'm hanging out with 4 of my friends, one of those being my best friend. But here's the thing. These 4 friends, although Mexican, they're white. Meaning they and or their parents may have been born in Mexico, but their lineage, meaning where their ancestry is from Europe. They are white people that happen to be born in Mexico. And this will play a role in this experience. So we went to downtown to hang out. It was around 9 p.m. We already done hung out. And so we're walking back to the parking space where we had parked my friend's car. So as we're walking down, there's a bridge right there that we're just walking by. The bridge is right there. The river down there. My friend's car is right over there. So we're walking down, and all of a sudden, there's a cop right there pointing his flashlight down at the river. So me, being a curious person, I looked over to look at the river to see what he may have been potentially pointing the flashlight at. So when I looked, I don't know what it is that I saw down there, but it looked like a fin from like a shark or a dolphin or something, right? Which more than likely it wasn't, because it wasn't a big river. It was a small stream. But nonetheless, there was a fin that was puffing out of there, whatever it was. And so I got the attention of my friends. Hey, check this out. There's a fin down. There's like a shark. And they all look, where? Where the cop is pointing at. Look. So then the cop approaches. He's coming around towards us, but I don't think he's necessarily coming for us. He's just coming around as he's pointing the light at the river. So me having the experiences that I had with police in my past, I told my friend, hey, the cop is coming. Let's get out of here, man. So as we're getting ready to walk away, suddenly the cop says, hey, did you guys see that? I took it as, let me take this opportunity to interact right back. Because I could simply just ignore him and keep walking. But honestly, I'm thinking, hey, man, just because you had a couple of bad experiences with cops in the past don't mean they're all the same. So I turn around all giddy, yeah, man, it looked like it was a shark. I saw like a fin or something. And he says, what? I said, yeah, like where you were pointing at with your flashlight. Didn't it look like a fin? And so he looks down there again, and he looks at me and he says, what are you talking about? I said, well, you asked me, did you guys see that? And where you were pointing with the flashlight, I looked, and it looked like it was a fin from like a shark or something. And he says, are you high? I'm like, no. You're just asking me if I saw something. And yeah, I saw like a fin. What you smoking on, man? And I'm like, oh, God. You know what? Never mind. So I turn around and continue walking away. And he says, no, come here. And I said, no, just sorry, man, sorry. No, come here. So I keep walking, but I hear the footsteps of the cop approaching me. And he's pacing. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, oh, man, I shouldn't have said nothing. So he places his hand on my shoulder and grips me and forcefully turns me around to face him. So I said, what do you want, man? And he said, what did you say you saw down there? I said, look, never mind. I'm sorry, man. No, what did you see? I thought I saw a fin. Like a fin from a shark? Why the hell would there be a fin or a shark down there? I don't know. You asked me if I saw something. That's what I saw. There is no sharks in this river. Well, I'm sorry. That's what I saw. Are you on drugs? No, sir, I'm not. Well, you know what? Stay right here. Because I just got a call and it told me that you were climbing that bridge. I'm like, what do you mean climbing that bridge? Yeah, you were climbing the bridge. Like climbing it up there. Why would I do such a thing? I don't know. Maybe because you're high? I'm like, oh, God. So he grabs his dispatcher, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, a couple of cop cars show up. This guy was the sheriff. And here's the interesting part. One of those police officers grab all four, yes, Mexican, but white friends and takes them a couple of yards down. And the rest of the cops, which were about 4, 5 maybe, they surround me completely. Meanwhile, the one that was questioning me initially, he gets in my face. Here we go again with the getting in my face thing. He said, look, the reason why I was here to begin with is because I got a call that there was somebody climbing the bridge. I said, okay. And you happen to fit the description. And there is video evidence of you climbing the bridge. I said, oh, yeah, there's video evidence? Yep. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so all I need from you is a confession. You want me to confess to what? To climbing the bridge. Wait, you want me to confess to climbing the bridge? Yes. But why do you need my confession for? So we don't have to stand here wasting time asking more questions. But you have video evidence of it. Why do you even need me to say or do anything at all if there's evidence, says you? Because although we got a call that described you and we have evidence that it was you, we still need you to confess. Oh, well, I'm not going to confess. And why not? Because I didn't climb anything. But we got a caller that described you doing it and we got video evidence that you did. Okay, and that's good that you got all that evidence because you're going to need it because I didn't climb shit. Oh, so you're going to make my job tougher, huh? No, I'm not trying to make nothing tough. I'm not trying to be difficult. But I'm not going to confess to something that I didn't do, sir. Respectfully. Kid, listen to me. We have evidence that you climbed that. We literally have somebody that could come and point his finger that you did it. And we have video that you did it. Why don't you just save yourself some time and just confess? No, sir. I'm not confessing to anything I've never done in my life. No matter what you say, no matter who comes and point their finger, and no matter what you show me, I'm not confessing to anything. In fact, if I'm a suspect to a crime or anything at all, can you please just take me to jail? And he goes, oh, I see. You're one of those, huh? You're one of those guys. And I looked at this guy and I'm thinking, oh man, not another one of these cops that feels a desire to act tough with me. And I'm thinking, what is it about me that causes cops to want to act tough with me? And right there and then, I knew that it was going to be a long night. Sir, I'm not trying to make it difficult for you. I'm not trying to be a hassle. But I'm not confessing to anything I've never done. So whatever it is that you're going to do, whether you're going to take me to jail or let me go, can you just get it over with? So then he says, who said you're going to jail? Okay, can you let me go? Who said I'm letting you go? Okay, so what do you want to do? What if I want to grab your little ass and throw you in that river? Why? Because you think you tough. And I want to prove to you that you ain't shit. I looked at this guy like, whoa. I looked at the other cops too. Like, are you guys kidding me? You walk around all day thinking you're tough until a real tough guy comes along and puts you in your place. At this point, I realize that I'm dealing with a psychopath, and the last thing I want to do is give him the satisfaction. So I decided at that point to do my very best to have self-control, because this guy was just looking for a reason. But of course, I'm also a young kid. I don't want to disrespect him either. I also don't want to allow anybody to push me around. So I say to him, is that what you want to do? And he says, you don't think I would, huh? I said, I don't know what you would and wouldn't do. And then he says, I'm a police officer. Anything that I do, I can get away with it. You want to know why? Because nobody will believe anything that comes out of your mouth. You already look like a criminal. I didn't say anything. I just kept staring into his eyes. And then he continued, you know, I could grab you, throw you in that river, and drown you, and get away with that. Do you want to know why? Why, sir? Because look at you. So I looked at myself. I'm just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. So aside from threatening that he was going to throw me in that river and drown me, he threatened to take my life as well. In many ways. And he was adamant about how he could get away with it. And after all this threatening, I guess I reached the point where I said, then why don't you do it? And just like the other cop from last time, he got close to my face and started barking about how he could do this and he could do that and he could get away with it, until finally a female officer, out of all these guys, it took one female officer to say, Sarge, let it go. Please, let it go. So he glanced over at her and then looked back at me and said, you're lucky I got more important shit to do. Otherwise, I would grab you and drown you in that river. After they all started walking back to their cars, I walked over to my friends and they were like, hey man, you alright? You alright? I was shaking. I'm not gonna lie. I was trembling. Was I trembling because I was afraid? Not really. I was trembling because of how much self-control it took for me to not in any way, shape, or form defend myself. Verbally, physically, because I really wanted to. I just knew that in a way he was right. More than likely, he can get away with doing whatever he wants. So it was the self-control that got me all shook up, that it required for me to keep my composure and not say anything or do anything. So yeah, I was shaking. I was trembling. So we walked back to the car, and before driving away, one of the friends said, you know why they did this to you, bro? You know why? And I looked up. Why? Because you're Mexican, bro. And I said, but you guys are Mexican too. And one of them said, yeah, but you look Mexican. And it was at that point in my life that I started to scratch my head. What do you mean I look Mexican? How can we look Mexican if we are just Mexican because we're born there? You guys are Mexican. And I thought, but they look white. They're not Mexican or identified as Mexican unless they actually say and or claim it. I am identified as a Mexican on sight. Doesn't matter what I do, what I wear, how I speak. I am identified as a Mexican. And these guys are identified as white because they are phenotypically white presenting. And that's why it took one police officer to detain them over there. Meanwhile, it took a couple to detain and surround me because I was more of a threat than the white-looking people. Imagine a reality where you need several police officers for one person, but then you only need one police officer for several detainees, if you will. Now, I've experienced way more things than that, but all those experiences all took place when I was still a teenager. Have I experienced anything in recent times? Absolutely. And I'll share it with you. So this happened about 3 years ago or so. And I was on my way to the water station to buy some water. And mind you, the road to the location doesn't take any main roads where there is traffic lights. So as I'm driving there and I'm almost at the water station, I see some cop lights in the rear view. And just like any other time, I don't think it's for me. Because why would it be? I'm not a criminal. I'm a law-abiding citizen that works for a living. So it's always puzzled me how I'm such a target for police. So when I see the lights behind me, I'm thinking, let me move out of their way so they could go catch the bad guy. So I pull in to the water station parking lot to get the hell out of their way. And as I pull in there, I see that the cops are also behind me. And I'm thinking, oh shit, wherever it is that they're going, the criminal that they're looking for must be over here. So when I enter that lot, I go to the right to move out of the way so they could go that way. So I park literally in front of the water station, in front of it. And the one cop car that was behind me parked right behind me as if to block me from being able to reverse and leave. And that's when I realized, oh shit, it's for me. Now, you would assume that a normal person would think something like, oh man, I must have went over the speeding limit. Let me get my ticket and take the L, right? That's more or less what I thought. So here come two cops. A woman, that's a sheriff, which is the one that came to my window, and then a rookie cop that stayed behind by the trunk of my car. And he had his gun drawn out and aimed at me. And I noticed it by looking at him in my rear view. And so I'm waiting for this woman to walk up to my car. This is what I decided to do before she even reached my window. I grabbed my wallet and placed it on my other seat and then placed my hands on the steering wheel so that I am not a threat. Okay, so my hands are on the steering wheel, my car is off, and my wallet is right there, very visible in case I need to grab whatever it is that she asked me to grab. So she walks up and says, license and registration. So I said, can I reach and grab that information for you? She said, yes. I said, and while I'm reaching and grabbing, can I know what you pulled me over for? Yes, you ran a red light. So as I'm grabbing my license and stuff, I'm thinking, there is no red light anywhere near. From my house all the way to here, traffic lights literally do not exist. Because this is a neighborhood. The water station is in the neighborhood, part of the neighborhood. There is no need to exit our neighborhood. But I was going to let her go ahead and continue claiming that. Because I knew that that claim of hers was going to save me in court. Because my vehicle records my entire journey. And there is no lights, no traffic lights from my house to the station. So I'm happily grabbing my information to give it to her. So when I gave it to her, she says, okay, get out the car. I say, why? Because I said so? Yeah. But why'd you want me to get out the car? Because I need to search you. Why? Because I need to for my safety. Why are you stopping me for again? And then she says, because you ran a stop sign. And then I said, wait, you said I ran a red light. And she says, whatever, get out your car. I said, no, get out your car. I said, if I ran a red light or a stop sign, why don't you give me the ticket for it? So you could go about your way and I could go about mine. And she said, no, you need to get out the car because I need to search you. I said, why? I have no warrant. I'm not on probation. I'm not a felon. None of that stuff. What do you want with me? So she says, are you going to get out your car or am I going to force you out of it? Now, here's the thing. I really didn't want to get out my car, but I knew from watching other videos of other people dealing with shit like this, as much as you say, no, I don't want to, at the end of the day, they're going to use force to do it. So Ricardo, just get out the car and give her the satisfaction so they could find nothing on you anyway. So I did that. So I said, okay, you know what? Let me avoid getting tased, getting mazed, whatever. So I said, okay, I'm going to reach to open my door. Is that okay with you? She says, yes. I reached, opened the door, and got out my car. And she says, put your hands on the roof of your car. Okay. Placed them. She starts patting me down. She finds nothing. And then the rookie cop starts searching my vehicle, opens my trunk, is searching, and I chuckle. And I said, what are you looking for, man? You didn't ask permission. I have no warrant. I'm not on parole. I'm not on probation. You can't even search my car. But yet you're illegally searching my car. And then the sheriff says, can you just shut the up? So then she grabs my arms, places them behind my back, and puts cuffs on me. And I say, am I under arrest? And she says, just shut up already. And I said, I want to know why I'm being arrested for. She says, you're not being arrested, you're being detained. I said, why are you guys illegally searching my car? And she says, shut up, dude. You talk too much. Just shut up. And I said, why are you guys doing all this? If I ran a light or a stop sign, shouldn't I get a ticket? And she says, you know what? I'm tired of your mouth. I'm going to put you in the back of our car until we're done. And so then she tells me, start walking down that way towards the cop car, right? So here I go. So I ask one more time, am I under arrest? Because you stopped me supposedly for a red light. And there is no traffic lights anywhere near. And then you switched it to a stop sign. And then, one more time, she says, dude, shut the up. And then she shoves me. And here's the thing. I do my very best. I always have and I always will. That if you don't put your hands on me, I'm not putting my hands on you. No matter how much shit you talk to me, whether you're a civilian or a police officer. You could talk all that crap, whatever. I'm going to let it go. But once you put your hands on me, it becomes a matter of defending myself. And it's not even something that I plan to do. It's instinctual. For example, when I felt being shoved, I didn't think of what I was going to do. I simply did out of reaction. So I don't know how I did it because I had my handcuffs behind my back. But somehow, some way, when I felt that shove, I instinctually reacted with a form of like elbowing or something. Nonetheless, I reacted physically and I must have hit her on a rib. So when I hit her, I myself was in awe, in disbelief, because I didn't want to hit her. I just reacted to being shoved instinctually. So when I felt the shove and I reacted instinctively, I myself was in shock. Like, oh shit, I hit her. I didn't want to. I really didn't. One, because she was a woman. But two, because she was a cop. I don't want to assault an officer and get 6 years. So I look back and I saw her face expression. And she, too, was in. And I guess her partner, the rookie, also witnessed me and my reaction. He pointed his finger at me. He said, did you just hit my sheriff? And then he rushed towards me and he threw a kick. And here's the thing. Because it was summer, I was wearing shorts. And a lot of people don't know this about me, but I have a somewhat of a bionic left leg. I got metal all the way down from my ankle, all the way up to my knee, all the way up to my hip. I got screws all up in there, right? That's what helps me to stand. And it's visible, very visible if I'm wearing shorts. So he kicked me on that leg. And I looked down to see if he messed up my leg. And then I look up and I said, hey man, you kicked me on my bionic leg. That's how I call it. Although it's not technically a bionic leg, but I called it that. I said, hey man, you kicked me on my bionic leg. And I threw a kick right back. And when I threw the kick, he then tackled me against the cop car. So I'm standing here with my arms behind my back against the cop car. My legs widened, fighting the tackling. Mind you, I used to wrestle when I was a kid. So they're not going to do anything to me. But I also knew that, Ricardo, how much longer are you going to resist being tackled? Just let it go. So I just gave it up and allowed them to tackle me and throw me in back of the cop car. I didn't even bother to sit up. I just lied the whole way to the police station. You want to know something funny about that trip? When I was in back of that cop car and the sheriff got in the driver's seat and the rookie got in the passenger seat, they were talking to each other as we were on our way to the police station. So both of them, they were talking to each other, having a conversation. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I start singing a song. It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside. I'm not one of those who can easily hide. I don't have much money, but girl, if I did, I'd buy a big house where we both could live. Anyway, I sing this song from beginning to end. I had memorized that whole song, right? And those two cops were completely silent while I sung this whole song. Now, if you're wondering, Ricardo, why were you singing? Because I suffer from a form of anxiety when I am inside of a vehicle that I am not driving. Ever since the car accident that I had, that caused my leg to be the way that it is. So me being behind that cop car, it was tormenting me to a level that I could never explain. And the only thing that could get my mind off of the anxiety attack that I was potentially going to go through is by singing a song. So I started singing that whole song, And although I sung it really crappy and really low right now, when I was in back of that cop car, I sung that thing loud, as if my life depended on it. Because in a way, it kind of did. So I sung the whole song. And you know what's crazy about the outcome of this whole thing? Because they stopped me for running a red light, but there was no red light, and because they illegally searched my car, and although I had somehow elbowed her and kicked him, it showed in court that they initially started all the illegal activities. They stopped me for no reason. I didn't run a red light. They took me out of my car, illegally searched my car, and shoved me. And because of this, I got no charges for assault on a cop like they wanted to get me for. And you would think, yay, Ricardo. No yay. Because you want to know what happened after that? This female police officer, sheriff, now everywhere that I was going, I would see her. One time, I went to the gym and she was parked right there staring at me. One time, I was coming at the grocery store and she was right there in the parking lot staring at me. And one time, I was coming out of my house and down the driveway, and because I had parked my car across the street, I was going, and all of a sudden I look to the right and I see a cop car parked nearby with her sitting in it. And when I stopped in my tracks and stared, she then turned her car and drove away, as if trying to tell me, I know where you live and I'm watching you. I had to grab all of my stuff and leave and move to another location so that this obsessed woman would stop stalking me. All because she wanted me to go down for assault on an officer and she got nothing. And now she was stalking me. And before I moved from that location, right before moving, a little bit after I saw her parked across the street staring my way, one day I woke up and I came out of my bedroom and into the kitchen and looked outside through the glass to look at the backyard, and a bunch of cops were out there with their guns drawn and her also there. And this is what I experienced because they couldn't get me for assault on a police officer. And I share these experiences because I want white people to understand that the way that they treat you is not the same that police treat us non-white people. When I was around 20, 21 years of age or so, it was the last time I dated a white girl, and she lived in a white neighborhood. And I guess she realized that every time that we would go out to eat or whatever, it would be in my neighborhood. And then one day she asked me, Ricardo, why we always have to hang out in your neighborhood? How come you don't come over to mine? And I said, are you kidding? And she says, no. Why don't you come out there to hang out with me in my area? And I said, because there's a lot of cops out there. And she said, there's a lot of cops out here too. I said, yeah, but you want to know the difference is that the cops over here, they're here to make sure we don't leave our environment. They make sure to keep us in here. Do you want to know what the cops in your neighborhood do? They protect your neighborhood and protect you people in your neighborhood and make sure people like me don't come in it. And if we come in your neighborhood, they make sure to get us the hell out. And she says, oh my God, are you serious? You don't really believe this, do you? And I said, oh, you don't think it's true? She said, it's not true. Why do you think like that? I said, okay, you know what? Let's go hang out in your area then. And she said, let's go so you could realize that you're just paranoid. I said, okay, let's go. Literally, that one single time that I decided to go into her neighborhood, we went to the Chipotle in her neighborhood. And when we walked in there, because I'm just so lucky, there was 2 cops in there. And as soon as we walked in, everybody in there was white, except for me. And the audacity of this Mexican walking in with a white girl, hand in hand. Those 2 cops looked, and as soon as they noticed me, they looked at me, they looked at her, and they looked at me, and I noticed it. And we're supposed to go there and eat in there, but I already felt unwelcome by those eyes. And I said to her as we were ready to order, can we just grab this to go? And she says, how come? And I said, because I don't think those guys want me here. And she looks and she said, Ricardo, they're just here enjoying their food too. I said, you don't feel the weight of their eyes like I do. And she says, oh God. Okay, fine, let's get it to go then. When we order our food and they give it to us. And the moment that we're walking out, those 2 cops get up and they start walking and now they're behind us. Coincidence. You're going to your car, they're going to theirs. They're done with their food. Okay, great. So I'm the one that drove there. But I decided, because I saw the cops there, I said to her, here, you drive. She says, why? I said, trust me, you drive. She says, okay. She gets in the driver's seat. I get in the passenger. She turns on the car, and we're about to drive off. And here comes the cop cars right behind us. Ricardo's just a coincidence. They're leaving too. They're exiting the parking space. Fair enough. We go to the left, and so do the cops. So they're right behind us. And I said to her, because I think we're supposed to go like at a park in her area, I said to her, drive back to my house. And she says, okay. So as she's driving all the way down, we hit a right to start heading over to my area. That cop car stayed on our tail until we left that area, the white area. But before we left it, she noticed that they were literally on our asses the whole way until we exited. And she says, oh my God, they're following us. And I said, no, they're following me, my dear. And the only reason why they ain't pulled you over is because you're driving. If I were the driver, they would have pulled us over way back there. And they would have made a big deal. For one, for coming into this white neighborhood. Two, for being with a white girl. And then she says, oh my God, I've never experienced being chased by a cop. Said, you never have. Still, I was the one being chased out of your white neighborhood, my dear. And she said, geez, yeah, welcome to my world. Now you know why I don't bother coming out here. So like I said, the police officers in my neighborhood, they're there to make sure we stay here. The police in your neighborhood, they are there to protect you and to make sure people like me don't come in there. That's the difference between a white neighborhood and a non-white neighborhood. The way that the police treat white people is not the same way that they treat us non-white people. It's not a matter of you need to comply. Nothing to do with that. Because when I'm out and about or I'm driving anywhere, when the cops see me, what do you think they see? I don't have a criminal record. I don't. I've never been to prison, but it doesn't matter. I look like I'm all that and then some. And when you're white, you don't look like a criminal, even if you are. And that's the difference.